When we reach our 60s and beyond, food choices suddenly carry more weight than they ever did in our younger years. Something as small as the type of nut we snack on can either quietly support our heart, brain, and circulation, or slowly chip away at our health without us even realizing it. Today, we're talking about something simple yet surprisingly powerful: which nuts seniors should never eat and which ones can truly help us thrive. The video topic is Seniors, 3 nuts you should never eat and 3 nuts you must. Advice for seniors. Now, I want to start with a story. Not long ago, I had a patient named Gerald. He's 67, a retired teacher, and like many of us, he believed nuts were one of the healthiest snacks around. He'd heard all the talk about good fats, protein, and antioxidants, so every evening he'd pour himself a small bowl, thinking he was doing his body a favor. But here's the twist. What Gerald didn't realize was that the nuts he chose most often were actually making his blood sugar harder to control, his waistline creep up, and his cholesterol more unstable. He came to see me, frustrated, because despite his efforts, he didn't feel better, he felt worse. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Nolan Easton, and I've been working in men's and senior health for over 30 years. I've seen firsthand how small changes can make the biggest differences, especially after 60. My goal is never to overwhelm you with medical jargon, but to walk with you like a trusted friend, someone who understands what it feels like to wake up with stiff joints, to worry about heart health, or to want more energy for the people and activities that make life meaningful. Now, back to Gerald. We sat together and reviewed his diet, and when I pointed out the specific nuts he was choosing, his eyes widened. "You mean I shouldn't eat those?" he asked. And that's the exact moment I realized how common this misunderstanding is. Nuts in general have a healthy reputation, but not all nuts are created equal, especially not when you're over 60. Some are packed with hidden sugars, oils, or compounds that can quietly inflame the body, while others are like medicine for your heart and brain. And that's why I want you to stick with me through this conversation, because by the end, you'll not only know which 3 nuts to avoid and which ones to embrace, but you'll also feel confident in making these small daily choices that protect your body instead of wearing it down. I truly believe this can add more good years to your life. And isn't that what we all want? More time, more energy, and more moments to enjoy with the people we love. Before I go deeper, let me pause and ask you a simple question. Have you ever been surprised to learn that a food you thought was healthy was actually working against you? If that's ever happened, drop a quick yes in the comments below. If not, just type no. I read your answers because it helps me understand where you're coming from, and it guides me in tailoring these videos to truly help. And while you're at it, if this message resonates with you already, please tap the like button, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you won't miss future advice that could make a real difference in your life. So let's gently unpack this. Think about the body at 60, 70, or even 80. It's not the same machine it was at 30. The metabolism slows down, muscle mass naturally declines, and the heart and arteries need extra care. Every calorie, every nutrient, and yes, even every handful of nuts matters. Some nuts are dense in oils that can clog up arteries, some are roasted in ways that strip away nutrients, and some are grown and processed with added ingredients that spike blood sugar. And for someone like Gerald, who was dealing with early signs of diabetes and hypertension, choosing the wrong type of nut every night was like quietly fueling the very problems he wanted to solve. But here's the beauty of the human body. It's remarkably responsive even later in life. When Gerald swapped out those problem nuts for better choices, within a few months, he began noticing the difference. His energy improved, his morning walks became easier, and even his doctor's reports looked better. And the only change he made was switching from one handful of nuts to another. That's the power of knowing what truly helps and what silently harms. I want to emphasize something important here. This isn't about deprivation. It's not about cutting out joy or never snacking again. In fact, when chosen wisely, nuts can be one of the most satisfying, nourishing foods seniors can eat. They can stabilize blood sugar, support heart health, and even sharpen memory. But just like we've all learned in life, it's about discernment, knowing what to say yes to and what to gently push aside. Let me bring this back to you personally. Imagine waking up tomorrow with just a little more pep in your step, fewer sugar crashes in the afternoon, and the peace of mind that you are nourishing your heart instead of straining it. That's what these small shifts can give you. And it's why I'm so passionate about this topic. Gerald's story isn't unique. I've seen it play out dozens of times with men and women who thought they were doing everything right, but just needed one or two gentle corrections. And you know what? Every single time they made the switch, they felt the difference. Not in years, but in weeks. That's how quickly the body can respond when we give it the right tools. As I guide you through this, keep in mind, the goal is not just to live longer, but to live better. More strength to play with your grandchildren, more stamina to enjoy hobbies without feeling worn out, more clarity of mind to remember details, conversations, and experiences that make life rich. These are the gifts that the right foods can help preserve. And as we continue, I'll be weaving Gerald's journey with the broader advice I give to patients every single day. Because advice only matters if it can be lived out, right? I want you to picture yourself in his shoes, making these adjustments, and imagine how much lighter and healthier your own days could feel. So take a moment and think about the nuts you currently enjoy. Maybe you have a jar in the kitchen, a snack drawer, or a favorite mix you grab at the store. Keep that in mind as we move forward, because in just a few minutes, you'll know exactly which of those are quietly dragging you down and which ones are ready to lift you up.
When Gerald and I dug deeper into his diet, the first thing I noticed was the particular nut mix he was buying. It was one of those large, colorful bags you often see at the grocery store, marketed as heart-healthy and packed with protein. The packaging looked convincing, but when I turned it around and showed him the label, his face fell. The mix contained not only the wrong types of nuts for someone his age, but also extra oils, salt, and even sugar. And this is where so many seniors get caught, because who thinks to check the fine print when you've been told for years that nuts are good for you? I remember gently explaining to Gerald that not all nuts play the same role in the body. Some, unfortunately, work against us once we cross into our 60s and 70s. Why? Because our metabolism slows down, our cardiovascular system is more sensitive, and our pancreas doesn't handle sugar spikes as well as it used to. When you're 25, your body forgives you quickly. But at 65, it remembers. It keeps score. And that's why the first nut Gerald and I talked about was the peanut. Now, many people are surprised by this because peanuts are everywhere. They're cheap, accessible, and they've been a snack staple for decades. But here's the issue. Peanuts aren't actually nuts at all. They're legumes, which means they contain compounds that can trigger inflammation in the body. And chronic inflammation is one of the biggest enemies of healthy aging. It contributes to arthritis flare-ups, memory decline, and even heart disease. On top of that, most peanuts are salted or roasted in oils that do nothing but clog arteries and raise blood pressure. For Gerald, who was already dealing with hypertension, this was like pouring fuel on the fire. The second nut we looked at was the cashew. Again, I could see the disbelief on his face. Cashews are creamy, they're delicious, and people often think they're a premium nut. But for seniors, cashews come with a hidden downside. They're higher in carbohydrates than most other nuts. That means they can raise blood sugar more easily, which is particularly risky if you're managing diabetes or trying to keep your weight stable. Cashews also tend to sneak into a lot of processed snack mixes and are often coated with extra flavorings that only add to the problem. Gerald had no idea that his handful of cashews each night was one of the reasons his blood sugar readings were stubbornly high. And then there was the third nut, the macadamia. Now, this one surprised Gerald the most, because macadamias are often marketed as a healthy fat source. And yes, they do contain monounsaturated fats, which can be beneficial. But the problem lies in how calorie-dense they are. Just a small handful packs a punch, and it's very easy to overeat them. For seniors whose metabolism is slowed, this can quietly contribute to weight gain, which in turn strains the joints, burdens the heart, and makes blood sugar harder to control. For Gerald, who was snacking mindlessly while watching television, those extra calories were making a bigger impact than he realized. I want to pause here and ask you, are any of these 3 nuts regular visitors in your pantry? Be honest with yourself. If they are, just type yes in the comments below. If not, type no. I'm asking because I know how easy it is to overlook these small habits, and I read your comments to understand where you're at and how I can help. And while you're at it, don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because I've got so much more practical advice coming that can make a real difference in your daily life. When Gerald and I identified these 3 culprits, he was a little discouraged at first. He looked at me and said, "So what am I supposed to eat now?" And that's a fair question. The last thing I want to do is take away a source of comfort or enjoyment. That's when I reassured him. This isn't about giving up nuts altogether. It's about swapping the harmful ones for those that actively support your health, especially at this stage of life. And that's where the conversation shifted from never eat to must eat. Before we get into those healthier options, I want you to picture something. Imagine Gerald sitting there in my office, his shoulders slumped because he felt like he was losing yet another food he enjoyed. Now fast forward 3 months. He walks back into my office, but this time he's standing taller, smiling wider, and telling me he feels more energetic than he has in years. The only difference, he stopped eating peanuts, cashews, and macadamias and started choosing better alternatives. Sometimes the most powerful medicine doesn't come in a pill bottle, it comes in the grocery aisle. So what happened when Gerald made the switch? His blood pressure readings began to stabilize, his blood sugar improved, and he even shed a few pounds without really trying. And here's the part I loved most. He told me he felt sharper. His memory, his focus, and his overall mood improved. He felt more like himself again. That's the ripple effect of eating the right foods. It doesn't just affect your numbers on a chart. It changes how you feel, how you think, and how you show up in your life. And that's why I want you to hear this clearly. The nuts you choose matter. They may seem like a small detail, but they can shape your health in big ways. I've seen too many seniors miss out on better days simply because they didn't know what was quietly working against them. Gerald's transformation is proof that it's never too late to make a change. Now, if you've been eating peanuts, cashews, or macadamias regularly, don't feel discouraged. This isn't about blame. It's about awareness and empowerment. Once you know better, you can do better. And every day you choose the right foods is another day your body thanks you. So, as we move forward, we'll shift gears into the good news, the nuts that don't just avoid harm, but actively help protect your heart, your memory, and your energy. The ones I call must-haves for seniors who want to feel their best. And trust me, when you start enjoying these, you'll not only notice the difference in your health, but also in how satisfied you feel after eating them.
When Gerald came back after those first few weeks of changes, the sparkle in his eyes told me more than his lab results ever could. He said, "Doctor, I feel lighter, not just in my body, but in my mind." That's the power of choosing the right foods, and in this case, the right nuts. Once we cleared out the culprits that were weighing him down, it was time to fill that space with the foods that would lift him up. I told him, "Gerald, you don't have to give up nuts. You just need to pick the ones that love you back." That's the truth of it. When you're over 60, you can't afford to waste time eating things that steal your energy or chip away at your health. Every bite counts.
And that's where the first must nut comes in, the almond. Almonds are a powerhouse for seniors. They're rich in vitamin E, which is like a shield for your brain and memory. They're also loaded with magnesium, which helps regulate blood pressure and keeps your heart rhythm steady. For Gerald, who was struggling with blood pressure, adding a handful of almonds each day worked like giving his body a gentle tune-up. Within weeks, he noticed his afternoon energy crashes weren't as bad, and he even said his joints felt less stiff in the mornings. That's because almonds fight inflammation. And when you calm inflammation, you make life a whole lot easier for your entire body. The second nut I encouraged Gerald to lean on was the walnut. Now, I like to call walnuts brain food because if you split one open, it even looks like the human brain. And in many ways, it acts like nourishment for your brain. Walnuts are high in omega-3 fatty acids, those healthy fats your body can't make on its own but desperately needs for brain sharpness and mood stability. For seniors, this is huge. As the years go by, memory lapses can become more common and mood shifts more frustrating. But walnuts support your brain and even help reduce the risk of cognitive decline. Gerald, who sometimes felt foggy and forgetful, told me he began to notice little things, remembering where he put his keys, recalling names more easily, and even enjoying reading again without losing focus. That's the quiet gift of walnuts at work. And then there's the third nut, the pistachio. These little green gems are often overlooked, but they're one of the best friends a senior's body can have. Pistachios are packed with fiber, which keeps your digestion moving smoothly, and they also help lower cholesterol. On top of that, they're rich in antioxidants that protect your eyes, which is something so many of my patients worry about as they age. Gerald admitted he had been struggling with digestion and sometimes felt bloated. After swapping in pistachios as his evening snack, he noticed he felt lighter, more regular, and even less bloated. His wife joked that he seemed 10 years younger just from that small change. Now, I want to pause here for a moment and ask you, do you already eat any of these three nuts, almonds, walnuts, or pistachios, on a regular basis? If so, type yes in the comments. If not, just type no. I ask this not just to keep you engaged, but because when I read your comments, I learn how to shape these conversations so they truly meet you where you are. And while you're there, please hit that like button and subscribe, because the more seniors we reach with this simple but powerful advice, the healthier and stronger our community becomes. As Gerald started eating almonds, walnuts, and pistachios instead of his old choices, his results were nothing short of inspiring. He lost 5 pounds in the first 2 months without dieting. He said his blood sugar readings were finally moving in the right direction. And perhaps the best part? He felt more motivated to keep making healthy choices. When you see and feel progress, it creates a positive cycle that keeps you going. But here's what I really want you to take to heart. These nuts don't just work in isolation. They work together like a team. Almonds protect your heart and calm inflammation. Walnuts support your brain and mood. Pistachios keep your digestion and circulation strong. Together, they form a simple, natural support system for your body, one that doesn't come with side effects, one that's affordable, and one that you can enjoy every day. I told Gerald, think of your snacks as medicine, but instead of pills, you're choosing handfuls of health. He smiled and said, that's the kind of medicine I can live with. And I couldn't agree more. And maybe you're wondering, how much should you actually eat? With nuts, a little goes a long way. About a small handful a day, around 20 almonds, 7 walnut halves, or 30 pistachios, is enough to give you all the benefits without overdoing the calories. The key is consistency. One handful once in a while won't do much, but a handful a day over weeks and months can transform how you feel. For Gerald, making this simple swap became more than just a health choice. It became a daily ritual, a moment of self-care he looked forward to. Every evening, instead of pouring out a bowl of peanuts and cashews, he would prepare a small dish of almonds, walnuts, or pistachios. He said it made him feel like he was actively investing in his future, one snack at a time. And that shift in mindset is just as powerful as the nutrients themselves. So Here's the question I want to leave you with right now. What kind of snack ritual do you want to create for yourself? Do you want one that drags you down, or one that lifts you up and carries you into your 70s, 80s, and beyond with more strength and energy? Because the choice really is in your hands, literally, in the handful of nuts you pick each day.
When Gerald sat across from me on that last follow-up visit, I could see a different man than the one who first walked into my office months earlier. His face looked brighter, his posture stronger, and the way he spoke carried more confidence. He said, "Dr. Easton, I feel like I've gotten a part of my life back." And isn't that what we're all after as we get older? Not just more years, but better years, filled with energy, focus, and joy. It all started with something as simple as changing the nuts he reached for each night. Instead of peanuts, cashews, and macadamias, which quietly worked against him, he chose almonds, walnuts, and pistachios, 3 nuts that nourished his heart, his brain, and his body in ways that built him up instead of wearing him down. That shift gave him a new outlook on life. He no longer felt like aging was something happening to him. He felt like he was participating in his own health, one handful at a time. And that's the message I want you to take with you today. Small, intentional choices matter. We often think health is about big, dramatic changes, but most of the time it's the daily habits, snacks, drinks, routines that shape the way we feel. The nuts in your pantry, the foods in your fridge, the little choices you make each day, they add up. They either move you closer to strength, energy, and clarity, or they slowly push you toward fatigue, stiffness, and decline. I want you to imagine yourself 6 months from now. You've made these swaps, and every day you've chosen almonds, walnuts, or pistachios instead of the culprits. What could that look like for you? Maybe steadier energy, fewer afternoon crashes, and better blood pressure readings. Maybe clearer thinking, less brain fog, or simply feeling more present with the people you love. Maybe you find yourself walking a little longer, standing a little taller, or even sleeping a little more soundly. That's the gift of aligning your choices with what your body needs now. Gerald's wife told me something I'll never forget. She said, "Doctor, it's like I have my husband back. He's laughing more, remembering things more, and he has the energy to enjoy our evenings again." That's the ripple effect of health. It's not just about you. It's about your spouse, your children, your grandchildren, your friends. When you feel good, you give them the best version of yourself. And I believe that's one of the greatest gifts you can offer. Now, let me pause to ask you something simple. Do you feel like you could make this change in your own life? Just type yes or no in the comments. I read every single one, and your feedback helps me guide you more personally in the future. And while you're down there, please click like, subscribe, and tap the bell icon so you never miss another video that could help you live stronger, healthier, and with more joy in your senior years. I've been practicing medicine for over 3 decades, and I'll tell you something I've learned. It's never too late. I've seen 80-year-olds improve their health with small adjustments. I've seen 70-year-olds reverse years of habits with just a few shifts in perspective. And I've seen people like Gerald rediscover their spark simply by changing what they put in their snack bowl. Your body is still listening. It still responds. It still wants to heal. You just have to give it the right tools. So the next time you're in the grocery store, I want you to look at those shelves a little differently. Pass by the peanuts, the cashews, and the macadamias, which quietly worked against him. He chose almonds, walnuts, and pistachios. 3 nuts that nourished his heart, his brain, and his body in ways that built him up instead of wearing him down. That shift gave him a new outlook on life. You don't have to accept decline as your destiny. You have the power to make choices that support the body you live in and the life you want to lead. And if a handful of the right nuts can play a role in that, imagine what other small daily decisions could do for you. So here's my final encouragement. Don't underestimate the small things. They're the building blocks of a stronger, brighter tomorrow. Choose wisely.
Nourish your body and live each day knowing you're giving yourself the best chance at not just longer life, but better life. I'm Dr. Nolan Easton, and I want to thank you for spending this time with me. Stay hopeful, stay strong, and remember, you're never too old to feel good again.